Over the past few months, I've seen a lot of people try their hand at Pokemon Nuzlockes. A lot of them have failed, and a lot of them have achieved the unthinkable and completed really hard challenges. As someone who both consumes this kind of media and plays Nuzlocke myself, I thought I might try my hand at one and put it on YouTube, something I've never even thought of before. So, my name's Longzone, my actual name is Kevin, and I made this video for you guys. It's pretty long, so sit back and enjoy. I'm gonna go over the rules. It's a hardcore Nuzlocke, but otherwise it's pretty standard to what you guys have come to expect. I'll see you guys at the end. So just quickly looking over the rules I'll be using. Standard Nuzlocke rules of Pokemon Faints can no longer be used, only catch the first Pokemon per route, nickname all Pokemon, abide by the level caps, no items in battle aside from held items and berries, and abide by the ban list, which includes Gyarados, Salamence, Legendaries, etc. So, heading on to the first route, it's time to choose our starter. And I thought about this for a while, but I eventually came to the decision that Mudkip would be the best. Torchic is usually pretty good, but Mudkip's just the best with only one kind of weakness and good matchups against the first gym and third gym. So, I decided I'd be rolling with it for this challenge. We headed back to the lab, and it was time to give Mudkip a nickname before going off and battling May. Didn't know what to name it, so I just thought about things related to a swamp, gave it a boring nickname, and it was time to move on. Next up, we went on to our first rival battle. This one's usually pretty easy since, well, it's one-on-one, and you're generally a few levels ahead of your rival at this point, despite the type disadvantage, so we just kind of chipped away at Trico's health, and we ended up getting a W on this one. First encounter time, and despite everything I was expecting to get, we ended up getting a Whirlpool, which is actually a pretty underrated encounter. It has good typing for the second gym, and while it won't be of much use at the first gym, aside from any absorb that a Beautifly or defense that a Dustox has, I think this thing will be pretty good early game. Definitely an underrated Pokemon. I would definitely suggest using it if you get one in your Nuzlocke. In my case in particular, I was hoping to have a Dustox, as it kind of trivializes Brawly, but Beautifly does the job similarly, and, well, you can't complain either way, so I just kind of named it, moved on, and hoped for the best. Second encounter that I got, and this is probably the worst of the 4 Pokemon you could get early game before heading off to the west. Poochyena is a really good Pokemon. It gets Intimidate, but unfortunately it can't really take advantage of its stab typing being dark, as the physical special split has yet to happen. But either way, we give this thing a name, and we move on. I should also mention that a lot of these clips of me catching the Pokemon have extended clips of me thinking of a name and failing to think of a name and then naming it something generic. Going forward, I probably won't do as many extended clips of me catching Pokemon that include this boring naming process, but for now, just try to bear with me. Heading west, we get an encounter that as of right now is pretty useless as Lotad and Lombre are bad, but later in the game I could definitely see Ludicolo being one of the more useful members, especially with how many water-type gym leaders and champions this game has. Like last time, I couldn't think of a name, so we just give Lotad a pretty generic name and we move on. Heading west of Petalburg, we get our encounter, and while I was hoping for a Tailo, the RNG gods clearly had a different idea as they ended up getting the second best thing, being a Wingull. This thing is pretty useful for some of the early gyms, so I was pretty happy getting it, and it will definitely be coming in handy at the first and second gym. Just a side note here, I should definitely mention that this thing is way more valuable than I'm making it out to be. Definitely train it up, it's great for the early game, Water Gun is amazing. Speaking of amazing, we have another great early game encounter here. We have Shroomish, which evolves into a physical attacker that primarily has special moves, but gets some fighting moves later on that make it worthwhile. It also comes with some really good status moves like Stun Spore, Poison Powder, Sleep Powder, and its ability Effect Spore makes this thing really viable early game. I was excited to get this. I'm always excited to get Shroomish, and it fills a Grass-type void on the team that I didn't want to fill with Lotad. Heading on to Route 116, there are some pretty bad encounters that you could get here, such as Skitty or Nincada or Whismur, but I lucked out and actually got a high-level Taillow. This thing, later in the game, without saying any spoilers, is going to end up being a run-saving god. Definitely catch Taillow. It can come with amazing abilities, specifically one in particular being Guts, and this one just so happened to come with that, so I was definitely happy getting Taillow. It may have saved the run, if not, definitely made it a lot easier on me. I was super happy. Even gave it a fitting nickname in hopes that it would have the ability I wanted. An encounter that most people groan about, it is the guaranteed Whismur encounter. Now, if you want to wait until later in the game, you can technically get a Geodude via Rock Smashing, but that's quite a whiles away, so I just threw that out the window and said, yeah, sure, I'll catch a Whismur. This thing is not good until the physical special split when it can take advantage of its special attack and sound-based moves, but for now it's just your run-of-the-mill normal type with not much special, so I will catch it, I might use it, but it's not going to be the best thing on the team. Now is time for our first gym battle, and this is one that I wasn't really too worried about. I had a lot in my favor for this battle, including a Mudkip, a Beautifly with Absorb, a Wingull with Water Gun, and a Shroomish. Yeah, there wasn't really too much on the line here. I guess if something survived an Absorb from Beautifly, it could have retaliated with a 4x super effective Rock Throw and killed it. But otherwise, there wasn't too much to talk about here. We took out Geodude with Mudkip and almost leveled up, still abiding by our level cap, which in this gym I believe is 14 or 15. I believe it's 15. And then we level up to 15. Nosepass is going to come out. One thing you do want to be careful about though is that Nosepass actually does have some pretty good special defense, and it doesn't have a ground typing, which means it's probably going to stand up to your attacks a bit better than Geodude would. So in my case, I opted for getting a Leech Seed off with Shroomish, and despite it blocking me, it was kind of trapping itself into its own death. A slow death, but a death nonetheless. This is definitely the easiest gym battle in the game, and you really shouldn't worry about it if you have, 4 Pokemon that are super effective against it. Yeah, this was pretty easy. Our first encounter of Granite Cave was a Zubat. Zubat is a really good Pokemon, has flying poison type, and you could friendship grind this thing for an early Crobat. Unfortunately, in my case, I forgot that it sucks right now, and I accidentally hit it a little too hard with Wormy. That's okay though, we came to deliver the letter, and that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to go back, and we're going to get the experience share from Mr. Stone for completing that quest. We're going to come back, we're going to get our Dewford Town encounter, which is a Tentacool. And then what we're going to do is we're going to head over to Slateport, which not a lot of people know you could do, get the soft sand from this little girl to help Marshtomp power up his Mud Shot, which is a really good idea before challenging the gym. We go up north of Slateport and we get ourselves an Oddish encounter. I was personally hoping for Gulpin, as I really like Swalot, but hey, this Oddish might be useful later down the line when water types take front and center. So I will take it, and I will give it a generic nickname. The The next gym battle though is Brawly, and this guy is definitely the first challenging gym leader if you are not prepared. Unfortunately for him though, we have a level 18 Tailo, and just saying, this thing is super overpowered for this gym. It cut through Brawly like butter. It was literally no competition, even capped it off with a crit, and got this easy gym badge. Now that we have 2 gym badges under our belt, I think it's time for a good team recap. If you'd like to look and slow down the video at what I'm going ahead and using, you can. Not going to go through every team member and bore everyone to death, but I think we've got a nice little squad here going forward. Now it's time to head over to the museum in Slateport and face off against Team Aqua for the first time. These guys are generally a joke, and that goes no differently for these two, as they tend to come at you with just a random water type, Carvana and Zubat, which is pretty easy to counter if you chose Marshtomp. He kind of just destroys their team. Mudshot, especially with Soft Sand Boost, just kind of rips through a lot of things early game, but not much I could do about that, as all 3 of the starters in Hoenn are pretty good. Not much I could say about this part of the game, except that I wish that there was another fight here. It feels kind of boring just fighting 2 random weak Aqua Grunts and then calling it quits. I think we could have battled Archie in a very early version of his team, and it would have made this a lot more interesting, and it would have definitely made it a better introduction to Archie, as he just kind of shows up at the end and then dips out as though nothing happened at all, which I guess on his end, nothing did happen at all. Rival fight number 2 is definitely some people's scariest fight in the game, as your rival comes at you with something that directly counters your starter, which might be your strongest Pokemon at this point. Luckily, I've got a pretty large and diverse team, so I wasn't too scared going into this fight like some people are, especially because she leads with a Wingull, and that's not exactly the strongest Pokemon. So I counter with my own Wingull, and this might have not been the best idea, as we were trading blows, and Wing Attack doesn't do the most damage. I kind of paid for my idiotic nature here and lost Wingull, but it's okay because Guts Hacks comes in, and we are able to rectify that mistake. We didn't lose anything too crucial. Wingull wasn't going to be too useful for the next gym anyway, so I definitely wasn't heartbroken about this. We send in Marshtomp, anticipating to just have a nice easy sweep of this Slugma here. Slugma's a pretty terrible Pokemon, and I was right. And then next she's going to be sending in her Grovyle, which is definitely what you want to get Marshtomp out of the way of. We send Guts Hacks back in, and it's pretty difficult for a Grass type to bring down a Flying type of the same level, so we just Wing Attack this thing, and it's gone. With this fight out of the way, it is time to head up north and start preparing for Watson. One of the harder fights in this game, but having a Marshtomp might definitely help us get through it. Heading west of Mauville, we have another route with pretty bad encounters, and it just so happens that we got an okay one. It's a Marill. Normally you get Illumise, or I think in the other versions you get Volbeat, but Marill's pretty good, especially if it comes with huge power. You can definitely use this thing well. So next is the first Wally fight, and let me just say, this is a little too easy. I know that they're trying to show that Wally is sickly and he's going to grow alongside Ralts, but just having Ralts is kind of a slap in the face to his character. Not that anybody cares about him, because he is kind of one-dimensional, especially in this game. He gets better in the remakes, but this battle's just, yeah. Mightyena makes quick work of Ralts. It wasn't even a battle. So, not a major battle, but I definitely felt the need to record this, as I've seen a lot of people lose Pokemon at the Win Straight Challenge, where you have to battle all of the Win Straight family in succession. You don't get to heal, you don't get to switch Pokemon, so oftentimes people will get stuck in a situation where their entire team's weakened and their lead is very weak, and you have no other option but to sack off a weaker Pokemon. But as you can see, we've evolved our Poochyena, and it has Intimidate now, So we are able to just completely get rid of any advantage that the enemy has, and we kind of control the tempo of the battle. So this was pretty easy overall. I know that the whole point of the family is that every single one is supposed to be stronger than the last, but they're all pretty consistent in terms of difficulty. They just have more varying teams, I'll say, with the first team being pretty basic, and then the next few family members just focusing on different types. Yeah, I think having a varied team kind of trivializes this, especially a team that's ready to take on Watson. But this house is technically placed after Mauville, so it's pretty much meant to be challenged after the gym. But that's enough rambling. We've taken out the easy members of the family, and it's time to battle the matriarch of the Windstrait family, Windstrait Vicky. She only has one Pokemon, and despite being labeled as the strongest aside from their son, she goes down pretty easily, and that's the Windstrait challenge. It was not hard. Now it's time for gym number 3. I'm really happy with how my team's looking going into this gym, particularly Marshtomp. I could probably balance my team around not so many flying types if I wanted to, but I was pretty confident that I had something good going on here. So let's get into the battle and see what happens. So, Gym Leader Watson will always lead with a Voltorb, and this thing's pretty dangerous as it can just blow up in your face. So I decided to lead with Mightyena, who has Intimidate, to completely get rid of the threat of this thing self-destructing, and then take it out pretty easily. Alright, so with Voltorb out of the way, it was time to see what Watson's AI was going to send out next. And he chose to send out Electrike. Now, Electrike is probably his most basic Pokemon in his team. It is just kind of your run-of-the-mill electric type. Focuses a lot on getting you paralyzed, doesn't have very heavy-hitting moves, so I used our Loudred, who is actually getting some utility here, to set up some attack and then take it out with an Outroar. Not before taking a bit of damage from that Shockwave though, which deters me from keeping it in and trying to sweep his team. Also, the next Pokemon is a Steel type, which means that probably best to get the normal type out of there and switch to our ground type. This Magneton is generally what gives people trouble, as Sonic Boom can rip through an underleveled team while Supersonic stops you from attacking. Luckily, we broke through Confusion, hit off a 4x super effective Mud Shot boosted by Soft Sand, and were able to stay in against Manectric with full health. This thing is pretty dangerous, but I could see in later generations it being more so, as Howl combined with something like Spark and Thunderfang would definitely be more threatening than what this thing has going on, which is Quick Attack. So yeah, aside from one death to the rival fight, we really haven't faced that much challenge so far, and we were just kind of ripping through the game. So I decided to keep doing so, and went up north to get my encounter outside of the Fiery Path. Normally, Numel's pretty good here just because it gets Magnitude early, and that could be good for Flannery. That's exactly what we get. Now, I wasn't sure if I was going to use this or not, because we ended up getting a more useful early game Fire type in Fiery Path after. That kind of made me leave Numel in the box for the rest of the game. Don't get me wrong, I like Numel and I really like Camerupt. Having something that can dish out Flamethrower and Earthquake is really fun, but in a Nuzlocke, it's just a little rough to use one on your team, knowing that the champion and 8th gym leader are both water type teams that could probably annihilate a Camerupt in one turn. So chances are this thing wasn't going to get used. Heading on to Fiery Path, we look to get our encounter. I think Coughing is probably more useful late game for this place, but we ended up getting a Torkoal, which is a pretty interesting encounter. You don't see it used on a lot of teams. This thing has pretty high defense, and it even comes with Curse, which is a great move for upping its attack and dishing out body slams, which is exactly why I wanted this thing on my team for Flannery. Aside from being able to set up its attack, it also showed that it had Smog, so it could set up Poison as well. This thing is a really great early game tank that I think flies under the radar a lot. I will definitely be using Torkoal in the future if I get it in other runs, but this run, it's gonna come in handy for Flannery, and that's about it. Yeah, so this wasn't my favorite encounter. This route, you can actually get Skarmory or Spinda, which are both better than this thing, which is quite possibly the worst fire type in the game, if not the entire Pokemon series. Doesn't evolve until very late game, and even then, it's just not that good. It's a defensive fire type with good special attack, but it just doesn't do anything special until late game. And for that, it's probably going to get a stupid name and be left in the box. Heading south of Falarbra, this is a great route. You can get a lot of good encounters here. Just turns out that I got the rare encounter, which is a Seviper. Seviper is a pretty average poison type. Reminds me a lot of Arbok, except it doesn't have Intimidate, which I think would have made it a great Pokemon. Gets interesting moves like Poison Tail, and obviously it could learn Toxic. But without Intimidate, this thing, aside from a cool design, just really isn't doing much for my team. I really did try to shoehorn this thing in, but the next gym was after Flannery is Norman, and the last thing you want to do to Norman's Pokemon are give them status effects and allow them to come back and hit you with Facade. So this thing's just going to sit in the box and look cool unless I can figure out some use for it, which I probably won't, being there's a Psychic Gym Leader later in the game, and Norman is not going to like seeing this thing. So, heading over to Meteor Falls, since I won't be catching a Bagon since it's on the ban list, I actually get a second shot at getting a Zubat here. And Zubat, as I was saying earlier, is a really good underrated Pokemon that you could get evolved into a Crobat. And luckily, I was a bit smarter this time, didn't one-shot the Zubat, and I ended up catching it. Another pretty pointless interaction with Team Aqua and Magma. This is basically just a scene where they set up where they're going to be going with the meteorite, but overall it's pretty stupid as you don't fight anyone and it's just pointing you in the direction to go, which is up here, where I'll be fighting Maxi. This is the first time you get to fight one of the team admins, and it's definitely not a fight you want to mess around with. I think it was harder in Sapphire and Ruby, as I seem to remember him having a Golbat as opposed to a Zubat, but it's pretty similar because either way he leads with a Pokemon with Intimidate, which is always pretty good, but as I said earlier, Mightyena is not the best offensively, so we counter with our own higher level Mightyena before going and switching to our new Breloom, and we are going to just take this thing out pretty easily as it has paper thin defenses and nothing to hit a fighting type with except for Sand Attack and Bite. Next is going to be his Ace Camerupt, and luckily for us we have a water type which pretty much just kills this thing instantly, even if Water Gun is pretty bad. Yeah, so that does over half health, and then we just take it out because it wasted a turn using Focus Energy. And this is the Zubat that I could have sworn was a Golbat in the original games, but down it goes because Zubat's a pretty bad Pokemon. Healing won't save it here. And after winning, we head down south and we get a Machop, which is an okay encounter. Machop is pretty good, even though I can't evolve it in the version I'm using because, well, it's on an emulator. So I probably would have preferred to have gotten Spoink, even though Spoink in itself is pretty bad. I'll take Machoke. We have a normal gym coming up, and this thing sometimes gets pretty good moves, and it can get guts, so I'll take it. Before heading into the gym, I decide to pick up the egg for Why Not outside of the gym from the old lady, and then we're going to go in and we're going to take Flannery on. So before we do that, we're going to get our team all set. We leveled up Aqua the Azumarill for this, just for this fight, so we could have more water types in case one goes down, and let's get into the fight here. So Flannery is another one of those hit or miss gym leaders, as she has really strong moves but really weak Pokemon. She has Overheat, which, if I'm not wrong, is a 150 base move, basically the same as Fire Blast, except it decreases in power every time but has better accuracy, so that's really scary. You definitely want to take out the Pokemon here as fast as you can, including her fully evolved Camerupt, which is stronger than Maxie's, but it goes down all the same because we have a great Azumarill. Then it's time for her ace. So Torkoal is a setup Pokemon. It has high defense, it's going to set up Sunny Day, it's going to try to paralyze you, and it's going to spam Overheat as it has a white herb that will give it special attack right back. And all those things combined generally lead to a dead Azumarill. So I wasn't too crushed here, it was just here for the gym battle, but it was definitely a little concerning losing a water type that easily, but I guess it makes sense as it's a sun boosted Overheat, which is already a really strong move. We do try to counter with our own Torkoal, which despite not being on the same level, I figured that setting up Curse could definitely lead to a W for us, but it opened with a crit at Body Slam, and then followed up with a full power Overheat in the sun, so there wasn't much I could do there. I didn't predict getting a crit, but it was time to just go with the safe option, which is spam Mud Shot and win, which is what you do with Marshtomp. But actually, that didn't work, so it was time to switch in to Edge Dog and try to get a quick kill on this thing before it could hit me again with an Overheat. This thing's just really frustrating. I mean, it's kind of annoying how it just heals and heals and heals, and it just hits you with strong attacks, and it uses Attract. Definitely my least favorite gym leader, and probably the closest we came the entire run to completely wiping, but it's fine. I mean, it's just a mess. Just ignore this even happened. We're lucky we got out of this, but wow, that was just frustrating. Now that we're past that mess of a gym leader, it was time to get our desert encounter, which in our case was a Trapinch. Trapinch is a pretty good Pokemon. It has a base attack stat, and I forgot to heal up, but that's okay. But Trapinch has a base attack stat of 100, which if you didn't know, that's the same as its fully evolved form Flygon. So this thing hits really hard. It just doesn't have any good moves. Late game, it's a really good Pokemon. Stab, Earthquake, and really high speed is a great combination. But we already have a ground type on our team, and this thing doesn't really have a place right now, so we'll see if we can squeeze it in later, like around the Elite Four. But for right now, it's just kind of some power in the PC, so let's give it a name and send it over. After that, our Why Not egg hatched, and this is a really good Pokemon, as Counter and Mirror Shot are pretty broken if you know what move's coming. We're just going to give this a fitting name and throw it in the PC for later, which we will definitely be taking out and using. It's Mirage Tower time, and our encounter is a Sandshrew. This has the same encounter pool, I believe, aside from Cacnea, as the desert does, so it's basically just an extra desert encounter. I'll take a Sandshrew. It's pretty run-of-the-mill, but in terms of ground types, it is third place in our PC, as behind Trapinch and Marshtomp, so chances are it's just gonna rot in there. Next, it is time to get our fossil, and while the root fossil seemed like a cool idea, the claw fossil is definitely the better of the two. Having really hard hitting rock type moves on Anorith is really nice. So we brought it back to life back in Rustboro, and we got our Anorith. I was actually really happy that I'd get to use an Anorith. We needed a rock Pokemon, and Anorith would definitely be getting its time to shine. Gave it a name, and threw it in the PC, to be taken out later. Time for another run killer, but before that, let's go over the team. So I'm going with a guts strategy here, so I've poisoned both my Swellow and my Machoke in hopes that we'll be able to just hit this thing as hard as we can without getting countered or without taking a stab facade. We also whipped out Everlast. I think that counter could be pretty good in this gym. Marshtomp's here, leveled up, pretty standard moveset. Breloom could be pretty good here, fighting type, stab moves, but 40 base power Mach Punch just isn't good enough. And Intimidate Mightyena, as always, could be pretty good for getting rid of the threat that Slacking poses. And it's time to get into this gym battle. So Norman's team is definitely changed from the original games. He's going to lead with a Spinda, which Spinda is like the most annoying thing on the face of the earth, as it will always try to confuse you either with Dizzy Punch or Teeter Dance, I think is the two moves it has. But we're going to lead with Guts Hacks here, as Facade, or rather Stab Guts attacks with Silk Scarf are pretty strong. Later we'll get Facade, and that's a whole nother animal, but this thing is just going to completely roll through anything that it faces. And we're going to switch to Mightyena here, as I really don't want to take a Stab Slash or whatever this thing has, and we're going to try to get its defense down so it's a little easier to take out. Mightyena is a lot more useful than I thought it would be. Intimidate is what makes it viable, but it's been pretty good between the last gym, the gym before, and this one. But it's obviously not going to do any team leading. That being said, it's about to die, so I went ahead and I switched it out for Breloom. I was pretty scared doing a hard switch, but I feel like I had lowered its attack enough so I'd be able to tank a hit. I think I misclicked here because I meant to just Mach Punch and take it out, but everything ended up working out on that end, and Linoone was coming in next. Linoone is a deceptively strong Pokemon, as I believe this one in particular has Belly Drum, so I wanted to take away its HP early. I get pretty lucky, it gets Effect Spored, and the Hyper Potion's not going to save it because Mach Punch just does way too much damage. I'm pretty sure my Breloom is Adamant, which means Mach Punch is going to do a stupid amount of damage when combined with the stab bonus that the fighting type gives it. And I was pretty happy with how this gym was going. I hadn't lost anyone yet, but I was kind of worried going forward as some of my main Pokemon were damaged. So I led off against Slacking with Mightyena right before pivoting straight out. I wanted to get the Intimidate drop on it. And I went right into Swellow, and honestly, I don't know what I was thinking. This might look like a genius brain move, but it just wasn't. It really wasn't me doing the double switch back into Intimidate on the loafing turn. Now it's -2. Swellow's almost dead. I really shouldn't have risked it because it's such a good Pokemon. And I decided to just send in Marshtomp. That was still doing a lot of damage. So I was contemplating getting its attack down lower, so I did. Now it's at -3, I believe. And this is the point of the battle where I just completely break it. See, Slacking's ability makes it only move every other turn, and I knew I could have used that by using Dig, which meant that I was going to be underground every time this Slacking used a move, and I would be attacking it every time it was loafing around. So basically, I win. There's not much of this thing can do. It used Feint Attack there, but normally it's not going to be able to do anything. So yeah, if you're doing a Nuzlocke, grab the Dig TM. This works with any Pokemon. I probably could have done it with Trapinch or Sandshrew if I was careful, but yeah, that was a pretty easy finish, anticlimactic finish to what is normally a really hard gym battle. Next, it's time for the new Marvel quest, and we got our encounter, and this is my favorite Pokemon. I love Magnemite. Just so happens that in this game, Magnemite is one of the best Pokemon that you can get. Steel Electric is a great typing. You don't encounter a lot of ground types. You encounter a lot of water and flying types, so Magnemite was something I was super psyched to see. This Magnemite in particular was giving me a lot of trouble for some reason while catching it, but I do eventually end up catching it, and it is going to be something that I immediately add to the team, as right after this quest you get the TM for Thunderbolt, and just a little tip, having a Stab Thunderbolt Pokemon in Hoenn is probably one of the best things that you could add to your team, aside from like a Rain team with Ludicolo, but I'll definitely be using this. So before heading up to the Weather Institute, I decided to get my encounter here, and I got a Zigzagoon, which is but pickup could be nice, so we catch it, and then we head up north to go fight Team Aqua. So the Shelly fight here is nothing difficult, really. This is just something to establish that there are other people in Team Aqua other than Archie, and she's going to go down pretty easily because we have a Magneton and it has Thunderbolt, so there's no challenge here. After that, though, we get a free encounter from this place, and it is not the best Pokemon. It is a cast form, which is super gimmicky, and probably not something we'll be using, but it comes with a Mystic Water, so make sure to take that item from it. Next is another pretty easy battle with May. She doesn't have the best team at this point. She leads with a Slugma in the rain, so I just stayed in with my Steel type and took it out. Switched into Swellow, which completely counters Lombre, as Lombre is a terrible Pokemon at the moment. Doesn't get any good moves. And we just stick in with Grovyle. I think having two Grass types and a Slugma in the rain is probably not the best. Then we ended up getting a pretty interesting encounter. Now, Absol's not the best in this game, but if you put Shadow Ball on it, this thing comes with Swords Dance and could actually be pretty good, especially for Phoebe in the Elite Four. It is pretty frail though, so I don't expect to use it as it's not the best for Nuzlocke. Mightyena is an okay enough Dark type, and it has Intimidate, which kind of vouches for it, so chances are this thing's going to sit in the box, but we'll pull it out if we need it for Tate and Liza or Phoebe, but just expect it to sit in the box. Winona time, and oh my god, this battle was completely trivialized by two Pokemon. The first one is the one on your screen. Magneton is so good. Thunderbolt is so good. Oh god, no, Earthquake. Oh, but look, Guts Swellow just breaks the game. Goodbye, Altaria. That was ridiculous. I have never seen that Altaria one-shot before in my life from a team with level caps. But yeah, we just completely destroy the rest of this team with Swellow, and then I think we switch out when Skarmory comes in, but that Swellow is just so good. I really don't see how they let a strategy like this get into the main game. It makes Swellow and I can't even imagine if I had a Machamp with Guts. That would be ridiculous. Then we got our next encounter, which is a Shuppet, and I was really happy about this, as this makes my encounter on the, oh god, what's it called? No, not Mount Pyre. I don't even remember what it's called, but the Ghost Mountain makes it easier to get either a Vulpix or a Duskull. So I was happy with it, and I gladly caught this thing. I think the only other encounter here that I don't have is a Kecleon, and I definitely didn't want a Kecleon. Kecleon's gimmicky, but Shuppet's way better. Safari Zone time, and we got a Doduo. Not the most interesting encounter you could get in this place. I think you could get Heracross, Pinsir, and Rhyhorn here. But Doduo could be good later in the game. If we lose Swellow and need a replacement flying type, it could come in handy. But this is another one which I think is just going to sit in the box. This is why I was happy getting Shuppet. We got a Vulpix. This is a really good one because level 29, this thing's going to come with Flamethrower. And while I was excited about it then, I kind of lost interest going forward as I realized the rest of the Pokemon in the game are going to be like rock, ground, and water types all over. But it was still really cool to get this thing, I guess. So we do some fishing at Lily Cove, and our encounter is a Whelmer. Not the best Pokemon to get, but it's pretty good if you evolve it. It has a big HP pool and hits pretty hard with Water Spout as a result. But this thing's pretty low level, and I have a really good water type on the team that I don't anticipate going down anytime soon. So yeah, it's probably going in the box. Next was the Magma Hideout, where we got a Graveler. Graveler is a pretty good Pokemon. If you could evolve it, it would definitely be a little bit better, but Stab Rock and Earthquake is pretty good. Not in this gen, though. Once again, water types are, everywhere. But in other gens, Graveler is really good, even on its own, just like Kadabra is. But spoiler alert, it's probably gonna go in the box, like everything else I've been catching recently. Kind of a pattern that's forming. So anyway, it is time for the next Magma admin battle, which again is with Maxi. And so we awaken Groudon, it gets pissed, flies off somehow with its non-existent wings, and it's time to battle. So this Maxi fight is a little bit harder just because there's a massive level spike out of nowhere, and, well, he still doesn't have the best Pokemon on his team. Mightyena is good, but he still has some gimmicky attacks, and he spams Super Potions instead of Hyper Potions, which would definitely be more optimal at this point in the game. But having a Crobat definitely improves his team. It just so happens that, well, we have a Magneton, and Magneton is really good, especially, well, not when it hits itself in confusion, but especially when you can use Thunderbolt and Thunder. Those are really good moves, and Magneton's a really good Pokemon. You know what's not a really good Pokemon? Camerupt, when it's against a Swampert, which is exactly what happened next. It died. I don't understand why you would want to have something quad weak to water in the water region. Speaking of the water region, next we had to face off against Matt while he, bought time for Archie. This is a pretty pointless fight, but for some reason, he is like almost on par with the team leaders. He just has the same sucky team that the rest of them have, which is Mightyena and Golbat, plus whatever the type Pokemon is for their team, be it Numel or Carvanha. Actually, I don't think he even has a Carvanha, so, yeah. But we have Isopod Hours now. Isopod Hours is probably like my favorite thing on this team, aside from Magneton, just because I've never used it before, and it's so funny to look at. And then we ended up going to the Shoal Cave, and we got a Spheal. This thing is a really good encounter. It's a bulky water type with the ice typing added on, which is kind of like a double-edged sword, as it makes you really good against stuff like dragon types and flying types. Really good for Drake, but it makes you really bad against like rock types and fighting types, which normally water types are really good against. But this thing could be used for the Elite Four. I could definitely see it being used on my team for, say, going up against Drake and his flying dragon types. Anyway, time for another team recap right before facing off against Tate and Liza. We had to level up our team a lot. We did a lot of grinding, and we got every single member of the team above level 40, right below the level cap. And our team is deceptively good. There's a lot of weak-looking Pokemon on here, like we have Mightyena, Swellow, and Breloom. But then we have stuff like Swampert, Magneton, and Armaldo. So our team is in a pretty good spot, I'd say, especially good enough to take on Tate and Liza. I expect a member or two to go down against Tate and Liza just because they have really good teams, but we'll see what we could do. Definitely going to try not to lose anyone. So Tate and Liza are a double battle format gym, so I decide to lead off with Swampert and Mightyena, as Surf hits both Pokemon and Intimidate also affects both Pokemon. So we're going to start off this battle here. I was pretty scared of Earthquake hitting Mightyena, but I figured Intimidate would drop its attack. They decide to confuse, and oh my god, Crit Bite completely takes out the Claydol on first turn when combined with the Surf. I was really happy about that. Earthquake was really scary, especially a stab Earthquake. So I decided to bite again and go for the Soul Rock, and I know a Sunny Day boosted Fire, Flamethrower, whatever it has, would hit really hard and probably take out Mightyena. And this thing has a Citrus Berry, we're healing. This is basically a back and forth battle. It's pretty boring to watch unless you're just watching Mightyena, because he keeps getting crits. I don't know what Mightyena was on. I don't know what grudge it had against these gym leaders, but it was the MVP uncontested against this gym. It destroyed everything in its path. And it's not even a special attacker, it's just randomly using Bite and getting lucky with crits. I wasn't gonna complain though. I mean, it's doing really well, and it gets another crit on Lunatone, which was ridiculous.
I didn't even know what to say at this point. I was just rocking with it. Armaldo and Mightyena were pretty much equipped to take out the rest of this fight, so I wasn't really worried, and I also wasn't really paying attention at this point because, let's be honest, I didn't really need to, because the rest of the team was just kind of left in the dust after the original members just died. So yeah, we just kind of cleaned up the rest of this gym battle. Lunatone's not really able to do anything without Soul Rock to work and synergize with it. It just puts us to sleep over and over again, and it's just counting the turns before its inevitable death. Which comes this turn because Armaldo has a huge attack stat, and it's getting boosted by Metal Coat. But that was the gym battle. We didn't lose anyone. Mightyena's ridiculous. So after that ridiculous fight, it's time to go do another one where we team up with Steven, the champion of the last game, against Maxie and Tabitha, I think is his name. Yeah, I think his name is Tabitha. It's either Tabitha or just a random grunt. Yeah, Tabitha. And this is a tough team, I will not lie. I don't know why they decided to do double battles all over the place at this point in the game. Kind of feels like, because I think double battles were like the new thing in Gen 3. Kind of feels like they developed them starting with Tate and Liza and said, hey, let's try to do that for like a bunch of battles. And so it's like the main thing in Moss Deep City, and then you see it never again. But whatever. This fight was pretty frustrating, and I thought I was honestly gonna lose a Pokemon. But I didn't, because Steven's a pretty good partner, Metang's a pretty good Pokemon, but it's just kind of a boring fight. It really just hinges on how quickly you could take out the Camerupt on each side, as I believe there are 2 Camerupt in this battle, and they're the only ones that can actually do damage, especially to Steven's Pokemon. As long as you can keep Steven's Pokemon alive and take the Camerupts out, you're kind of okay, and having an Armaldo, I really like this Pokemon. I've never used it before, ever, and it is really good. I only used it because I've just heard people say it's really good at Nuzlocke, and it doesn't have the best moves, but by god, it just kills everything in its path. A Golbat and a Crobat, literally not even something that Armaldo is going to bat an eyelash at. So even though this is taking forever, we do eventually come out with the win on the other side. It's just really annoying having to deal with confusion against Pokemon that can't do anything against you. I think the battle's almost over though. Mightyena's coming out. It should be the last Pokemon these guys have. And we're running out of moves at this point because Ancient Power only has a few PP. And Mightyena goes down. So luckily now the battle should be over. Yep, it's over. That was really boring. I did not like this battle. I wish it was a little different. I don't know how I would change it, but I would change it. So we're going to get our underwater encounter, and I was hoping for a Chinchou, but we got a Clamperl, and Clamperl has its own utility, but I definitely am not going to be using this thing. If I got a Chinchou, I might be able to use it in the Elite Four, but I didn't. Yeah, I don't know why the back end of this game is so overloaded with Team Magma and Aqua fights. I understand it's the climax, but you could have had a little more in the early game between the player and the admins. Having back-to-back Maxie and Archie fights is just a little boring because they have the same team aside from the one Pokemon they substitute out because they don't like water or fire. It's basically just send Magneton out, have it destroy the entire team, switch it out if your opponent has Camerupt. It's just pretty boring and gets really repetitive, but we have to do it because this is a Nuzlocke. At least now we actually do get to a pretty cool part of the game. Right after this, we get to fly up to Sootopolis City and see what these two idiots on Team Magma and Aqua have done to the world. So, questions about how Groudon is alive out there aside, we get our Cave of Origin encounter, which is a pretty cruddy Pokemon. It's a Sableye. which, despite its super interesting typing that in this generation has literally no weaknesses, it's really bad. It doesn't have the stats to hold up, especially at this point in the game. If I had gotten it in, say, Granite Cave, it could have been really useful against Brawly, but here, I just wouldn't even consider adding it. Heading over to Sky Pillar, though, we get a Claydol, and Claydol's pretty interesting. I mean, we didn't get to see much of it in the Tate and Liza fight, as it kind of died, but Psychic and Ground is a pretty cool typing, and Levitate is definitely a cool ability. I just don't think that this thing has much of a place on the team. If I needed a Psychic type, I would use it, but I just don't think I'm going to end up needing one. But yeah, Rayquaza time. I have always loved this part of the game. It is so cool, and it has that right amount of janky early 2000s cutscene. It's just so great. With Rayquaza gone, it is time to challenge Juan to a battle. Now, I've always felt that Juan was kind of shoehorned in here as someone to take over when Wallace left to become champion. He's literally just the same. He has, like, virtually the same team with all the same water types. I'm pretty sure Wallace actually had a worse team, but honestly, I don't really remember. The only thing that was, well, I don't even think anything gave us trouble here. Well, in the beginning of the fight, that is. His early Pokemon are pretty crappy, but he has one Pokemon that is really good, which is coming up next. Yeah, Kingdra is a really strong Pokemon, and if you don't plan right against it, which I thought I had, then you're gonna lose. And, well, it survived Facade, and Guts Hacks, our nuke, went down. Now, this isn't something that's obviously like a lose condition. I could come back from this, but losing Swellow was, I was kind of hurt because it was really good, and it was destroying things, but I kind of knew that it wasn't something I would realistically be bringing into the Elite Four, as it's pretty frail, and the poison damage would definitely set it up to just die after one turn. But losing it here kind of sucks, because it was my plan for taking out the Kingdra, and I didn't expect it to survive, so that sucks. Also sucks is me thinking that Swampert could take it out, and then trying to take it out with Breloom, and also forgetting that it has Ice Beam. Yeah, Breloom died. That's 2 deaths. That's like the most deaths I've ever had in a battle. Actually, I might have had... Did I have 2 in Flannery? I think I did have 2 in Flannery, but these are 2, like, important deaths. I was planning on bringing Breloom to the Elite Four. It was going to be pretty good in Glacia, well, if it didn't get hit by an Ice Attack. And it was going to be really good in Wallace. I was planning on Leech Seeding my Milotic, but I guess I'm just going to have to adapt now. It's fine. Yeah, just send out Magneton. I forget how much of a win button this thing is. Stab Thunderbolt is just really, really good, and I'll keep that in mind for the next time I see Kingdra. Going on to Victory Road, we get another one of my favorite Pokemon. We get a Lairon. And I don't think I'll be using an Aggron in this run, but it's a great thing to have in the PC in case I use it. And I Master Balled it just for fun. Now it's time for the most shocking battle in this game. For some reason, Wally comes out of nowhere after never battling him again, after he has that one Ralts. He comes up to you in the Victory Road, and he has a stacked team. I mean, this dude had no business having the good Pokemon that he has. He leads with an Altaria, which is the ace of a gym leader in this game.
it's level 44. Luckily, I have a whole new team of level 50s, and I was able to completely take it out. Now, the rest of his team is really good, and the rest of my team is really good. Most of it's pretty easy though. Roselia's kind of garbage. The only thing you're going to want to watch out for is the Magneton and the Gardevoir, which I felt pretty prepared for, especially in terms of the Magneton, which can't do anything to a Swampert, as they are two of the best Pokemon in this game, but Swampert's a little bit better. Yeah, and he also has a Delcatty, which is just a utility Pokemon, but it's one of 5 of his team, which is really bad, and it goes down. And we get an Ancient Power Boost, which I thought would be enough for us to take out the Gardevoir in one shot, considering we have such high attack and it has such low defense. But it somehow tanked a boosted Ancient Power, which I then full restores, and so I should have just Ancient Powered again, and I should have not Metal Clawed twice. A lot of this is my fault. Luckily, we don't end up losing anything here because Isopod Hours is like the best thing ever. But this was a really frustrating fight. I should have slowed down. I should have just taken my time in choosing moves, as I let Gardevoir pretty much just set up on me, which I shouldn't have done. But it's time to hit the win button again, and wow, that does a lot of damage. Yeah, it was setting up Double Team. I needed to paralyze this thing. It has Synchronize. It has Future Sight. I was very frustrated. I wasn't panicking, but I was just really frustrated, and when I'm frustrated, I don't exactly make the best choices. Like I said, didn't lose anything here. Earthquake one-shot it. Probably should have done that sooner. But the battle was over, and I was happy. After battling Wally and going through the victory road, there was just one thing left. The Pokemon League. Time for the Elite Four. Specifically, time for battle number 1, Sydney. This guy is generally seen as a pretty free win, and in my case, I definitely felt like I had a team good enough to take him on, so I just kind of dove into it after grinding my team up pretty considerably. For the life of me, I have no idea why every single important trainer in this game leads with a Mightyena. Yes, I get it. It has Intimidate, but it's just not that good of a Pokemon, and it goes down so easily, and it just gets so tiring seeing it over and over again. There's like no other generation that does this. Yes, Gen 1 has a bunch of grunts that use Raticate, but Giovanni doesn't send out Eradicate. No, he's got like Kangaskhan and stuff. But anyway, we're actually fighting the Elite Four now, so we have to focus, is what I would say if we didn't have a Magneton that was just completely melting through his entire team. Yeah, like I said, Magneton is pretty good. If you can get it, use it. It's God tier. And, next is Shifter, who I specifically trained up that Oddish that we caught so long ago for, taught it Sludge Bomb. This thing was going to be my grass counter for the Elite Four, as it resists pretty much everything these guys can do, and hits them back super effectively. It's only now that I'm realizing I didn't exactly level up Vileplume the same as I had my other team members. I really should have gone into the Elite Four with a higher level Vileplume. Probably would have helped me one-shot this Shiftry, as opposed to letting Sydney get off a full restore, but that's okay, because we do a big brain play, get some chip damage on it, and make it so our next Sludge Bomb will put it out of its misery instead of in healing range again. We do, unfortunately, take an extra sensory first, though. Luckily, Shiftry is bad, so we live it, and we take out Shiftry. Next up was Absol, who I assumed that Armaldo would be able to take out, as we are a rock type, which resists a lot of physical attacks, being the most rock types have high defense and resist normal type moves. And it was a bug type, which is super effective against dark type. But I guess I just didn't expect Absol to have Rock Slide. Yeah, I don't know why,
Absol really shouldn't have Rock Slide, especially in later generations, but I guess here it's fine, because it does a lot of damage, and I was expecting to win with Armaldo. And it kind of forced us to switch out because Armaldo is a really good Pokemon who I'm going to want to have later in the run. He'll be pretty instrumental for the champion fight, even though it doesn't seem like it. So we have to hit our red button and switch out to Swampert, who hopefully with a soft sand boosted Earthquake can knock this thing out in one hit, even from full, and we are going to test that right now. Yeah, luckily Swampert is just really good. I really should ban from using this thing in Hoenn, but I won't, simply because all the starters have usefulness on its level, not quite to its level, but a similar level.
Next came in Cacturne, and this, along with Shiftry, are probably two Pokemon that I really didn't worry about at all. Decided to heal up using Moonlight on Vileplume, which I kind of forgot that it had gotten until I leveled my Gloom up to the point where it gets it. But it uses Cotton Spore, which is really stupid. It must have not had any other moves that it could use because it seemed to find it important to make me go second. But yeah, Feint Attack, it's not going to do much. And Sludge Bomb, yeah, it's going to do much. Turns out, Cacturne, not the best Pokemon. So it faints, it goes down, and Vileplume gets the unexpected W for us. I really didn't expect this random Pokemon that had been sitting in my box for so long to do so well for us, but that's one Elite Four under our belt. We are that much closer to winning this thing. So next up is Phoebe, and Phoebe is a really dangerous trainer. She has a lot of Pokemon that will status you, or place curses on you, or are really bulky and will stall you out with Protect. So you really need to make sure that you have a sound strategy going in. Otherwise, you're probably going to have an unexpected wipe against her team with your team that is prepared only for Drake and the Champion, which, by the way, is basically what my team is built around. So I really needed to slow down and think prior to facing off against Phoebe, but luckily I did, and I think I'm pretty good at game planning against Elite Four members, so let's get into it. The most threatening part of her team, undoubtedly, are her two Dusclopses, and Dusclops are really bulky Pokemon. Even before the advent of Eviolite in Gen 5, these things were hard to kill. They had Protect, they had high defense, they had high special defense, and they did not have a lot that could face off against them in this gen, because there were not a lot of Ghost types. Dark type was special. The Dark types that are in the game are physical, aside from maybe like one. And yeah, oh, no, it just killed itself. Yeah, so that's one of the things about Phoebe's team as well. If you could get them down low enough, then get them to use Curse, it's probably a free win, along with using a Magneton, but it's the second one you gotta worry about, because the second Dusclops has Earthquake, and that could kind of knock out Magneton in one hit, so I did switch out to Swampert. Swampert hits it with Earthquake, which I was really hoping would do some serious damage, and of course it did. It didn't quite one-shot, but it didn't quite put it into healing range either, which I was really happy about. Hits us with a Shadow Ball and gives us a useless special defense drop, because Shadow Ball is physical, and so is Dusclops. Heals up with a Citrus Berry, not enough though to save it from Earthquake, and we end up knocking it out. From here on out, her team is comprised of, I think, just a bunch of Bannettes and a Sableye, which is also known as completely free for a Swampert with Soft Sand boosted Stab Earthquake, because all three of those Pokemon have really crappy physical defense. So yeah, Earthquake number 1 against a level 49 Bannett just completely drains its HP. And next was either going to be another Bannett, or it was going to be a Sableye. It was the Sableye, which is just such a bad Pokemon. I wouldn't have even put it on her team. I would have put another Dusclops. It goes down. It's not even a question. This thing just sucks. If you could, like, let it be annoying, it might be able to set up on your team or something, but it's just not going to happen with a level 55 Swampert across from it. Next is her last Bannett. and this thing's going to go down just the same. It's the same level as the last Banette, and it has no priority or anything to do anything against me, and it goes down. So that's 2 Elite Four members under our belt. I was really feeling good at this point because I hadn't lost any Pokemon, and we were about to go into one of the easier fights, although one of the fights where it's easiest to lose Pokemon. So like I was saying, the next fight is the one where it's easiest to lose Pokemon, just because Glacia has Sheer Cold. And for those of you who don't know, Sheer Cold is a move that will knock out your Pokemon without fail, unless I think it has Sturdy in this gen. Otherwise, your Pokemon's dead if it hits. It can only hit Pokemon that I think are lower level than it. If it's higher level, it'll fail. But it's gonna try to hit you. It's specifically the Wall Rain. It's the scariest thing in this fight. The Celios can't even do anything. Magneton just completely takes them out. The one coin flip that I'm hoping is that the level 55 or whatever it is, Wall Rain, can't take me out. Just so happens, it was coming in next. I double checked the level to make sure that it wasn't higher. It was 53, so I wasn't sure if Sheer Cold could hit me. It missed though, and normally it says, like for example, it would say Polar is unaffected. So I think Sheer Cold hit, but when it rolled the accuracy, it missed. So I think I just got really stupid lucky there, and Magneton by some chance survived, which is really good because if Magneton died, it probably would have been a complete wipe when I got to the champion, because I kind of need a strong electric type for an all-water team. But down goes Wall Rain, and with it goes the chance of getting Sheer Colded. Magneton grew a level and just gets all that much stronger. Time to face off against her 2 Glalis. I don't know why they gave her 2 Glalis. I think Frostlass probably should have been introduced in this generation. So first of all, Phoebe could have had another ghost type, and Glacia could have had something that wasn't a second Glalie. But yeah, we send in Isopod Hours to deal with these things, as Rock is super good against Ice type. They did prove a bit harder to deal with than I anticipated though, as Ancient Power is just not the best Rock type move. Once again, I don't understand why Armaldo doesn't get better Rock type moves. I'm pretty sure that Rock Blast was a thing in this generation, and while it's not the best, it would be better than Rock Tomb. And Rock Slide, there's just really no excuse for not having that be a move available on Armaldo, even if you made it like one of those moves where you have to get Anorith to a higher level without evolving it, and then you get it. That would have been fine. But yeah, because otherwise you're just kind of using all of your PP ups on Armaldo, trying to get it more Ancient Powers. Yeah, that's essentially what I did, but it's not too fun. Anyway, Magneton just kind of does what it always does and takes out Celio here, and it's time to deal with the second Glalie, who, with Isopod Hours down, I decide to just hit the red button and send in Swampert again, as Stab Earthquake is really good. I think I had actually forgotten to heal Swampert up, because I don't really remember it having damage on it. I'll go back and check the footage, but I think I forgot to heal this thing. Not that it matters though, as this Pokemon has base 80 defense, and well, we just need to keep hitting it with Earthquake over and over. It's not exactly going to be able to take Swampert out too easily. But she is going to try. She's going to spam her full restores, and we're going to Earthquake, and it's just going to be a super boring, uninteresting fight. I think that's a result of me not using items, is fights seem a lot more boring, because the opponent gets to use items and I don't, which just kind of makes it feel like so much more work. And then this Ice Beam nearly kills Swampert with a critical hit. Luckily though, we were able to come back with a Waterfall, take out Glalie, and get this horrendously boring fight over. Like I said, the only real threat in this fight is the Sheer Cold Wall Rain. If you can get past the Sheer Cold Wall Rain, you're pretty set. So yeah, going on to the last member of the Elite Four, which is Drake. Now Drake by far has the most stacked team that I have ever seen in an Elite Four. And yeah, he kind of gives Lance a run for his money because this guy has a Salamence, a Flygon, a Kingdra, an Altaria, and yeah, well, he has a Shelgon. But the other four Pokemon that he has are all really strong and really dangerous, and pretty much all of them can take you out. So we decide to lead with our designated dragon killer here, Berg, but this thing protects itself. In fact, it protects itself twice, which really made me angry, because this thing sucks. It really shouldn't be wasting my time that much. But luckily, we took it out with Aurora Beam, which is a poor man's Ice Beam, as I honestly didn't feel like going to get the Ice Beam TM. I knew where it was, I just didn't feel like getting it. I felt like just taking on the Elite Four today. Salamence comes out, and this is probably the most dangerous Pokemon on his team. It is a pseudo-legendary with Intimidate and a bunch of super strong physical moves, including, yes, Rock Slide. There's a reason this thing's on the ban list. So it gets a lucky flinch on us with Rock Slide, and then outspeeds us and hits us again. I didn't switch out because I needed to risk the crit to kill the Salamence here. Luckily that paid off. I probably would have lost otherwise. And I get to take this thing out with a crit Aurora Beam, which I don't think mattered because it was a 4-time super effective move. I think it's like base 60 or 65. Yeah, I don't think the crit mattered there. So then we're going to go into our favorite boy, Isopod Hours, who is actually a girl. Still our favorite boy. And we need to take out this Altaria. And this thing is not as menacing as Winona's Altaria because, first of all, we have evolved Pokemon now. This thing's not a pseudo. And I'm pretty sure it doesn't have Earthquake, which kind of takes away a lot of the danger factor of facing this thing. But yeah, we just take this thing out. Aerial Ace is not going to do anything to us, even at +1, and Ancient Power is going to absolutely demolish a flying type. So it goes down. And now I'm feeling pretty confident. But then I see Kingdra again, and I scream internally, because of what this thing did last time. But I learned my lesson, and like I said, I would remember that Magneton kills Kingdras for next time I saw it. Stab, Thunder, and Thunderbolt are really good. So, while this thing's setting up its pointless Dragon Dances for its non-physical attacks, I decided to get a Thunder Wave off, because I had a feeling if I could cut this thing's speed and stop it from moving, I could probably take it out pretty easily. And so, I decided to hit it with a magnet-boosted Stab Thunderbolt, which hits really hard and knocks it down below half health, which is perfect, because that means he's not going to heal it. Now we hit him again with a Thunderbolt, and Kingdra goes down. This time without taking any casualties. I was happy, because last time I saw one of those things, it took out 2 of my favorite Pokemon. Next is Flygon, which is actually another one of my favorite Pokemon, probably 3rd behind Aggron and the Magnezone line. But we had to take it out all the same. I put Wave Incense on my Swampert to power up Surf in hopes of taking this thing out, as I knew the Walrein would be pretty damaged from his fight with both Shelgon and Salamence. This thing Earthquakes us, but it doesn't do much. I realized while looking at the health numbers that I could take exactly 3 of these and then die another on a 4th one. So I look at the health and I could say, oh, well, I can definitely take this thing out in 2 Surfs. But it's going to knock it into red. So to avoid him healing, I use Toxic. And what Toxic does is it knocks it down into the range where a 2nd Surf can take it out without Drake healing up Flygon. I thought this was a pretty big brain move. I was pretty proud of it. Swampert survived 3 Earthquakes like I thought he would, and then took out Flygon. I thought that was huge brain. I saved Swampert, and nobody died on the Drake fight. Now we were on to the final fight of this Nuzlocke, and I was ready. When I was building this team up prior to going into the Elite Four, I was building it up with this fight in particular. Wallace has a really easy team to prepare for, but when you're actually fighting against it, you can definitely see some surprises happen. Like, his team has a lot of Ice Beam or Toxic, stuff that you wouldn't expect coming from a water type. I suppose you would expect Ice Beam, but you wouldn't really expect Toxic. you definitely need to be ready to change your strategy when facing this guy, because he's gonna get a crit Hydro Pump or a freeze with Ice Beam. He's gonna get Toxic off on your tank. But I was confident. I just dove right in with the team I had and stuck with the strategy that I was gonna go with. The idea was that Magneton would come out fast enough to outspeed the Wailord, and I would be able to one-shot it using a Thunderbolt. So I went for it, and Wailord has a ton of HP, so this takes a while to drain down, but eventually, my plan worked, and Wailord went down easily. That's one Pokemon down without even taking any damage. But next was Gyarados, which is another one that's banned for a reason. It's an Intimidate Pokemon, and this one has Earthquake, which means that it would annihilate Magneton. So I tried sending in Isopod Hours, anticipating the rock moves to do enough damage to, at the very least, hopefully two-shot this Pokemon. It Dragon Dances, which turns out being a pretty good thing, as it doesn't do any surf damage to my Armaldo. We use Ancient Power, which I was hoping would do half damage with the Hearthstone, but it only does a little above half, but then we get the Ancient Power boost, and we get all of our stats raised by 1 level. That's amazing. That's super lucky, and I don't know what would have happened if we didn't get it. So we survive a surf, probably we would be able to take 2 of them thanks to our Ancient Power boost, and we hit this thing with a +1 super effective Ancient Power boosted by Hearthstone and Stab. That's enough to take out a Gyarados. Luckily. Yeah, there's a reason that thing's banned. So next is Ludicolo, which is really annoying. I think this thing has like Toxic and Double Team. Definitely not something you want to deal with. I send in our dedicated Grass-type killer Onion, who, despite her low level, should be able to take out a Ludicolo using Sludge Bomb. So we just start Sludge Bombing away. This thing's gonna try to spam its Double Team and set up its stupid strategy. But hopefully Onion would be able to come through and hit it twice. We hit it the first time, and I was kind of hoping for Poison here, just in case we start missing Sludge Bombs. But we don't. It uses Surf. We don't take that much damage, and we Sludge Bomb it right back. We don't miss. Onion, that's the one purpose that we needed Onion for, just to take out that Ludicolo. It survived. It took the Ludicolo out, and now I could sacrifice it if I need to gain momentum back in this fight. So my Lodic's coming out. This is undoubtedly the most threatening Pokemon that Wallace has. It's really strong, it's really bulky, it has super high special defense, it has Hydro Pump, it has Recover, it has Toxic. It's really annoying. So we try to send out our ace against it, Swampert. I was confident, we're 2 levels below, but we have boosted Earthquake. We're gonna try to get the Toxic off, because if Swampert can't take it out, then at least someone else could. Surf does huge damage to Swampert for some reason. I know it's neutral, but that's still a lot. Badly poisoned my Lodic, so that's going to kill it slowly over time. We try to Earthquake it. My Lodic goes for a stupid Toxic and somehow misses, which is a complete throw on Wallace's part. We get off Earthquake. My Lodic suffers the poison damage, and now we're guaranteed, unless we get crit, to get off an Earthquake. Luckily we didn't get crit. We get off the Earthquake, and my Lodic's gonna go down. So that's twice now in one fight that I think we've lucked out to the point of saving the entire run. Yeah, so next is gonna be Tentacruel. Tentacruel has pretty low defense, pretty high special defense, and is weak to Earthquake. What we need to do is we either need to take it out with Polar or paralyze it so that Swampert can come right back in and Earthquake it to death. But that Hydro Pump is going to hurt. I didn't expect it to do quite as much as it did, but I guess Magneton's special defense really isn't that high. We Thunderbolt it, and it doesn't kill, but I recognize that that's healing range, and I use the time to Thunder Wave it, because I anticipate that Magneton isn't going to be able to take out Tentacruel. I decided it would be best to risk after this going for Thunder, since Thunder has the base attack to take out Tentacruel, where Thunderbolt wouldn't be able to. But of course we miss, Tentacruel doesn't, because that's just how this game works, and Magneton goes down. Which was okay. That's our first death of the entire Elite Four run. So we send in Vileplume, which, by the way, I'm making it sound smart. It's not. It was a misclick on my part. I'm super embarrassed about it, and I hope someone makes fun of me for it. But we try to make the best of our scenario. I didn't want to switch someone out into a full power Ice Beam or Hydro Pump, so I just kind of let Vileplume take the hits here. I let it do the chip damage needed on Tentacruel to at least ensure the death when Swampert comes out, but yeah, I felt bad about this. Vileplume definitely didn't need to die. F in the chat for Vileplume. I felt bad about that one. Sent in Swampert since Paralysis is going to guarantee that I outspeed. And I do, and I get off a boosted Earthquake, and it dies. Which wasn't lucky, it was just me picking myself back up after literally sacrificing Vileplume, which is fine. Next was Whiscash, his final Pokemon, and my hands were kind of tied here. I only had one thing I could go into, which was my Ludicolo, which the only thing it had was Bullet Seed, and my Miracle Seed was on Vileplume, who was the original plan to take this thing out. I had forgotten about it until just now, so I was hoping that Ludicolo would be able to finish the job here before this thing got set up. Luckily, Bullet Seed crit on the first hit, which meant that after the first turn, Whiscash was left with half health. After that, it was basically just time to click Bullet Seed after tanking this Earthquake and hope that we had a 4 to 5 hit turn that could take out Whiscash easily. And by some RNG god luck, like I had throughout this fight already, we got exactly that. And we took out Whiscash with ease. With that said and done, it was over. I mean, we won. That was my first ever time recording a Nuzlocke for YouTube, and while this isn't a perfect project by any stretch of the imagination, I had a lot of fun doing it, and it's definitely something that I might do in my spare time just as some fun. As it's just something where I sat down, played a game, and hit record, then added a bunch of clips to an editing software and called it a day. But that's enough of that, because it's time to go do the Hall of Fame and actually finish this challenge. Heading into the Hall of Fame, I kind of was looking back over this challenge that I did, and I'm kind of realizing that I probably could have made the rules a little bit harder. I feel like next time I do one of these, I'm going to add another hardcore rule, which has you put the game on set mode, which means that you don't exactly get to choose what to switch into when your enemy is sending out their next Pokemon, so we'll do that next time. Time to see the screen that so many people want to see at the end of their challenges. The Hall of Fame screen with Polar the Magneton, Isopod Hours the Armaldo, Berg the Walrein, which was a weird name, the Vileplume, Onion, who I didn't even anticipate using, Lily the Ludicolo, who I really didn't anticipate using, and finally, our starter, Mangrove the Swampert, who really just breaks the difficulty of this game alongside Magneton. That was a pretty easy run. That was a very easy Elite Four. We only lost a few Pokemon, and we ended up winning pretty easily. But yeah, this is a pretty new YouTube channel, and on the off chance that this actually gains some traction, it would mean a lot to me if the people who stuck around and watched this thing to the end actually dropped a sub on my channel. I'm looking forward to making more gaming clips and maybe higher quality content if people actually latch onto it. I've always done Pokemon Nuzlocke, not to this rule set, but I've done stuff like ROM hacks in Fire Red Omega, or just the base game, like Black 2, Fire Red, etc. And I would be happy to do more of that, as I've seen a lot of content creators have success in just playing through the game. But it's enough of that. Thank you guys for watching, and leave a like or a comment with any suggestions that you guys have aside from just improve the audio quality. Yeah, I know, I don't exactly have a mic, but I've got all the tools I need to make a video, and I did exactly that. I hope you all have a great day, and come back, I guess, if I make more videos. Or don't. I'm not exactly the police. Alright, see you guys.